What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am Dan Favale, interrupting your regularly scheduled programming before you even get to it to tackle the news very quickly that Frank Vogel was dismissed by the Phoenix Suns after just one season. I'm sure everything will now be hunky-dory with the Suns because he was clearly the problem, the only problem that they have. I'm kidding. Mentioning this now because the news broke within 20, 30 minutes after Grant and I finished recording this roughly 2-hour podcast, which fucking annoying, but it happens. Left the conversation in there because we did talk about Vogel and Phoenix and just the head coaching news in general. A lot of it's still germane about why were they waiting, why were they deliberating his fate, who they might be going after, yada, 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 yada. So I left it in, but wanted to just note that. And as a reminder, this was recorded before the game twos that took place between Boston and Cleveland, Dallas and OKC. We did give some thoughts on that towards the latter part of the podcast. Hope you really enjoy this episode. Please, if you're here, like, subscribe, comment, help the algo love us back. Appreciate all the support as always. Let's get back to your regularly scheduled programming. What is crack-a-lackin', fellow thermonuclear AFers? I am the notoriously shadow banned Dan Favale, coming at you with my certified fantabulous, dripping with fantabulousness co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes. We are here to bring you the number one sports podcast, not NBA podcast, but sports podcast in the business. We are coming for all the other podcasting media properties in the industry. This is Hardwood Knocks. Mr. Grant Hughes, how the heck are you?
Doing better than all the Knicks that keep getting hurt. My hamstring's good. My
ankle, shoulder,
foot injury that no one's gonna specify what the issue is. Maybe there's no news on that, right? Like what it is specifically with Brunson.
It's just soreness, Grant.
Soreness. Yeah, he's a little sore, aren't we all? Yeah, I'm doing great. Happy that we did secure the number one sports podcast position. It's been like 2 days since we last checked up on it. I'm like, if I'm honest, a little disappointed that we've only ascended to the top of the sports round, but like, we
have like, I'm sure by the end of May that will just be the most downloaded podcast in the history of
by end of day. It's an EOD goal.
It's an EOD goal. So we wanted to go over some news items before we get into playoff stuff. I think we should start. Let's start with the awards. So all the awards have now been named. Jokic won his third MVP. Rudy's Defensive Player of the Year in a landslide upset. Victor Wembanyama won Rookie of the Year. I didn't see that one coming at all. Did you have any? And maybe I'm just so unplugged from Twitter, but it seemed like it wasn't even toxic, but the most controversial or heated award ended up being Sixth Man of the Year. Nas over Malik Monk or even Bogdan Bogdanovic slash Norman Powell. Did you have, Steph, Clutch Player of the Year, Brad Stevens, Executive of the Year, Mark Daigneault, Coach of the Year? There's certainly Coach of the Year. There's always other options. Were there any awards where it was, like that you took an issue with?
Well, I mean, Steph wasn't my Clutch Player pick and Nas Reed wasn't my six-man pick, but I think they were both, I might have had Reed second and Steph third or something like that. So it's like, it's hard to argue. I guess I'm kind of surprised that Steph got Clutch Player of the Year, just because, like, I don't know if you dug at all into the numbers, like the Warriors just weren't a good clutch team, and that, it just sort of depended on where you wanted to like make your thin slices of the data, because like Steph was awesome in the clutch, and there's definitely an argument for it. I guess I thought DeRozan kind of had it in the bag. It felt like not quite the level of like Maxey most improved momentum, like from the jump, but like it's almost could have been like a lifetime achievement clutch award for DeRozan, because he's always, the last several years he's been up there. I did, of the awards like chatter that I've heard in the wake of them being handed out, the one I'm kind of like bumped on, and maybe this is just like, people have to have a take when Jokic, who was kind of the prohibitive favorite, ends up winning it. I've seen at least one, like, I'm paraphrasing, but it's like, it's ridiculous that SGA didn't win it. I don't know if you've seen these, but like a couple ESPN personalities have put that out there.
It was along the lines of, if I'm correct, the tenor was, what more does SGA need to do?
Yeah.
Vibe.
And like, I think we both had him second. Yeah. So it's just like, I look, we're sort of in agreement. Like, he had an MVP caliber season. I just don't know. Like, it's frustrating because it's like, I understand if you're going to be a talking head on TV or whatever, or part of your like job is to put an opinion out there that's topical, it's like you got to say something, and it's like semi-defensible. There's plenty of evidence you could cite that to make an SGA should have been MVP kind of case. But I just like it, they always feel like disingenuous to me a little bit, or like kind of like not trolling so much, but like just I don't know. It's like the verbal equivalent of clickbait. So like I was annoyed by that just because I think don't like detract from Jokic winning a deserved third MVP. Like you know, say SGA has been great, say he might win some in the future, but I don't like the angle of like it's wrong that he didn't win it, or it's unfair, or it's like that's just I'm not on board with like that kind of take it with awards.
And if there's actually a case for it, but you need to build the case. It's not just about I'm all for propping up players rather than trying to detract from them, but you need to frame it as well. Then why shouldn't Jokic have won? And the reason you can't say Jokic shouldn't have won because SGA did this. I think the best way I did see it framed was I think it was Ryan Wallstat, who writes for I want to say the Toronto Sun. We have a lot of Raptors fans in our Discord, so they'll correct me, assuming I'm wrong. Had framed it on Twitter as like, I voted for SGA because he took the Thunder from X to X in the standings and the defensive gap between him and Jokic. But I understand why anyone voted for Luka or Jokic. And like, that's the best way to, like, I get it. Like, I look at Jokic. I mean, the big thing for me is like, as an optimizer of talent and just offensive dominance. Right. And I wonder how much it factored, like, would the reaction have been different if the Nuggets are up 2-0 on the Wolves when this comes out rather than down 0-2?
Yes. Yeah. I think that's the other part that bothers me is like the Thunder look unbeatable. SGA has been good to great. Jokic looks vulnerable for the first time in like 18 months or maybe longer. So yeah, like I should have mentioned that. Like that's annoying is when it's like it has nothing to what's happening now has zero to do with the
MVP award. Yeah.
So like it's just I guess it's easier to make the argument that Jokic was undeserving when you see the Nuggets, down bad right now, but it shouldn't count. It shouldn't matter.
I would like to see, and I know we have the conference finals and the NBA. I want to see like a playoffs MVP, but then I go back and it's, well, could you ever theoretically have because does it come down to just, well, here's the best player who played in the most games? Does it end up just being the finals MVP anyway, most of the time? So maybe it's sort of redundant there, but the inability to kind of separate the concept of this is a regular season MVP award. It doesn't have to do with going on. And then like the way they're announcing it, they are rolling the NBA is doing that to itself in essence. And maybe they want to drive that debate is if you're going to release this in the middle of the playoffs, there's a chance that your MVP has already been eliminated. And that's happened to Jokic before.
And Dirk Nowitzki, that was the roughest one after that was the We Believe year, I think, when they got knocked out by the 8th seed and were like, here's your trophy.
Right. His reaction this time, by the way, was just amazing. I know I criticized
wave thing.
Yeah, I know I criticized him for what happened in game 1, but like I actually love that, like the complete indifference. And then what he said, he's like, I liked it better last year when I didn't win, but we won the title. That was fucking cool thing to say. I didn't have any issues with the award, but the other thing, and we've talked about this, but Tom Haberstroh kind of contextualized it. When you look at all the other MVPs that have won at least 3, I think he wrote that Nikola Jokic is the only one to never have anyone who made an all-NBA team, an all-defense team, or an all-star team. That's like, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the meat and potatoes of your argument because you don't want to penalize Giannis has good teammates. Luka has had like good teammates. Luka hasn't won an MVP, so that's a bad example. But like Giannis having good teammates, LeBron having good teammates in the past, that's still fucking wild.
It speaks to value, right? Like
it does.
How valuable a player
too. And I know this isn't a playoff award, but this is very clearly someone who can only be the best player on a title team, but do so while not having. And we know what Jamal Murray has been in the postseason, but like surviving the regular season and the regular season performance is part of it. So
yeah. I mean, it does all that like squares with all the ridiculous on-off numbers that always make Jokic's case and all the catch-alls always like him too. But like, that's always the component of like, what do we do with this? That the Nuggets just get smashed whenever he doesn't play. Like, regardless of who's out there, it's like, well, it's just all of a piece of his like unique MVP case because clearly if there is we always dismiss it, but like there is an element of like, not just how good is the team with you, but like how bad is it without you? And it's always like circumstantial and kind of subjective. And it depends on like, the makeup of the team, which we feel uncomfortable about, like kind of getting into. with MVP conversations because it's just like that guy and how good does he make you? I I don't know. Maybe we should start considering just like how bad the team is. You know what it does though is it just makes it circle all the way back to like what do you think valuable means?
It's
You
open
know?
for interpretation. That we would, I wonder though how much Joel Embiid specifically has impacted the discourse around the on-off stuff, specifically to Jokic, because he has these wild on-off splits too. He just never plays enough, or
Right.
typically doesn't play enough for it to matter on the same scale.
Yeah. Well, and then like to get back to SGA, since that's kind of where we started, is like the Thunder are really good without him. And so if you're making his MVP case, you're saying that you think of value a little differently than you do than some people do. Because like for some people, I think it's like, well, if they're plus 10 with him and plus 10 without him or whatever it is, that's more of a Celtics issue this year. But the swing is not as big as it is for Denver. Then you're just like dismissing that aspect, or you're that's not a persuasive thing for you in trying to define value, I guess.
The shout out Jalen Brunson finishing 5th in MVP. By the way, Giannis was 4th. I had no issue with really the order. If there was an award that I could take an issue with, I didn't sweep, so that was disappointing. But clutch player, I can't bring myself to care about. I don't even remember who we picked. I think I might have settled on DeMar DeRozan. Steph was on my short list for it. Can't bring myself to care about that. I think what I need to do, and maybe this speaks to there's a level of inconsistency in how I analyze things. And I'm sure as we go through the industry over the years, like we've all changed how we look at things. I need to really sit down and just adjust and settle on what do I consider the most improved player? Because I still think I probably would have gone with Jalen Johnson had he hit the games minimum, or Scotty Barnes. But like, and I'm not saying Tyrese Maxey didn't deserve it, but it's like, do I gravitate? I feel like depending on the year, like I've gravitated towards SGA was my pick last year, I believe, over Larry Markkinen because he made that leap from star to megastar / MVP candidate. And Tyrese Maxey made like not a similar leap, but like he went from this is a potential all-star player to this is a potential all NBA player, which is a very hard leap to make. But then you also could have made the same case for Shea again this
Right.
year. And I felt like I was gravitating, at least again, this runs counter to how I looked at it this year. I felt like I was gravitating more towards, with perhaps the exception of Scotty Barnes, it was, well, these are dudes who are good or supposed to be good, but they've really expanded the Denny Avdia, or they've gotten bigger roles, like what happened with Jalen Johnson. I need to sit down and add more consistency to how I'm thinking about it, because I feel like it started to shift year over year, which is to say, I don't have a problem with Tyrese Maxey winning it. He
No.
was not my pick. But me specifically, it did make him winning it and how much of a favorite he was to win it really kind of resonated with me in the sense of, oh, I need to adjust how I'm looking at this award, or at least settle on how I've kind of said I won't vote for a second year player. And I almost did for J-Dub. And that's a little different because it's sort of the one subset of criteria, but just the overarching nature of this award is something I think I need to take a look at leading into next season.
Yeah, I think I was more dismissive of Maxey because I just felt like, yeah, his counting stats are better, but he's playing more, his role's bigger, and his shooting efficiency went down. And I was like, well, then he's not really that much better. But like, I think he showed in the postseason. Again, this shouldn't matter, but it definitely like made me. I think we talked about it. I was like, did we just overthink the whole most improved player thing? Because he's clearly like a fringe superstar now. I mean, like, I think it's for me, it's always like, is the player different? Like, you know what I mean? Like, as opposed to, oh, he played more and his numbers look better. Like, did the player become a different type of player? And then you value that like as you ascend up the like tiers of player types, like all-star to all NBA or all NBA to MVP candidate or whatever. And the higher you are up, like the leap matters more. But yeah, I've just listed like 7 different criteria that I think about. So obviously, like, it's not a super refined process for me either. I think that's kind of a feature, not a bug, of these awards races sometimes. Like, as long as you're not getting them ridiculously wrong in terms of the voting body, then like at least we have something to like argue about or compare and contrast or like ask these types of questions. Because if I don't know, we could just give MVP to whoever leads in box plus minus if you want to like really make it regimented.
Let's move on to some coaching news before we talk about Jamal Murray really quickly. So we're behind on this just because we haven't really been hitting news. This happened today. Charles Lee is now the head coach of the Charlotte Hornets, Boston Celtics assistant. He's been a candidate for a bunch of jobs in the past. The Nets hired Jordy Fernandez away from the Sacramento Kings, been an assistant there, I think, for the past 2 seasons. He's already started fleshing out his assistant coaching staff. Juwan Howard is going to be on it. Kevin Ollie won't be back with the team. So there's been a lot of shuffling going on over there. And what is the other one? We know we didn't talk about the Lakers firing Darvin Ham specifically, but they fired Darvin Ham. We did mention that they probably were going to do that. There was the news. I'm looping these all together, and you could touch on what you want. There's the news that the Suns are still deliberating on the future of Frank Vogel, which kind of just speaks to me like, oh, well, the Clippers, is Ty Lue going to leave? And they have a team option on Ty Lue. That's another coaching news here. They want to extend him. He's interested in an extension. The Lakers and the Suns probably just need to be more creative with their list. JJ Redick was a prominent candidate for the Hornets job and apparently the Lakers job. And I don't know if you listened to the latest Mind the Game podcast. Yeah, I don't listen to people who don't do as many downloads as us either. I get it. But I did like LeBron did kind of have like this not so veiled. He was asking JJ Redick about his coaching philosophy, but was like, when you're coaching, let's just say your son's team or your child's team. And so I thought that was funny. And then the other thing, Chauncey Billups, there was a report from Chris Mannix, and it was backed up by Mark Stein that he would have suitors if he's going into the final year of his deal. He would have suitors if the Blazers or if he left the Blazers. The only comment I'm going to add before I throw it to you was that very much feels like Chauncey Billups is releasing that information because he doesn't like he wants people to think that there's like the Blazers side to think there's competition for his services, or he wants himself to come off better than he has in Portland. I honestly don't know. A lot of people think he sucks as a head coach. And in the sense of, I don't know what the guiding philosophical principle has ever been for the Blazers while he's been there. You could speak to that as a failure, but just the way that the roster has looked and the organization has functioned, I don't know what I'm supposed to have necessarily learned from Chauncey Billups. So all those things, I think we covered everything. We got Jordy Fernandez, Charles Lee, Lakers stuff. So like, anything stand out to you in particular from that? I do expect the routes. I will say quickly that the Hornets and the Nets went here. Like, I like it when these younger teams go with these people who are considered sort of up and comers and outside the box. And also I think I missed this, or didn't say this, but the Lakers are also, they've been linked to Kenny Atkinson and Mike Budenholzer have been two other names that feature.
Yeah, Jason Kidd got his extension too. That was very, very much like the Lakers got someone else paid, because I feel like that happened very, very close in time to when there was a report about.
We talked about it before before Darvin Ham got fired, whether he deserved an extension. That actually might be worth a talking point, because I think some people, the impetus will be to say he doesn't deserve it. The Mavs defense this year, post trade deadline, and the other thing is, and this stuff matters, he is clearly connected with both Luka and Kyrie.
Yeah, and like, it was easy to say like, oh, it's happening again with him, because Kid had that Mavs defense looking really good. What was it, in 22 when they were a really good playoff defense, and then it's slipped 1 year and slipped again. And it's like, that's kind of the way things have gone in his other stops, is like there's a solid bump and then things kind of fall off. Like this year, I feel like, I don't know, might indicate like, well, he's just getting better as a coach, like I think that's very much like the things we can evaluate, like how hard does the team play? Like, is its defensive philosophy making sense? Like, do the stars like are they bought in? It's like, yes. And so like extension, like, and also, are the Lakers maybe interested in this guy? Yes. Okay. Extension. Like I
talk about leverage for Ty Lue though, where you have, it seems like multiple teams just sitting, waiting.
Yeah. Well, wasn't part of the reason Ty Lue, like, didn't the Lakers lowball Ty Lue the first time around? And like, that was one of the reasons. I feel like
they went with Vogel, or didn't he choose the Clippers over the Lakers? That's what ended up happening.
And I think it's because the Lakers, everybody thinks of the Lakers, and they are a big market team, but like the Lakers are kind of like
family operation.
Yeah, they're family owned, and they're not like run by venture capital.
They got the triple P loan. They needed it, right? So
yeah, they were hurting out there. What is interesting about I think the idea that Phoenix hasn't pulled the trigger on Vogel yet is kind of surprising to me. Right? Does that surprise you? Like, it seems like you're not going to blow the team up. This is the lever to pull. Like, this is it's not the right decision, but it's the only one we can make. So we got to change coaches. That seemed obvious to me.
The issue is, do you want to make a move that brash when there are 26 other teams that would trade places with you immediately?
And like, can you pick up the phone? Like, well, let's see. I was trying to get to like the house being on fire. By the way, have we talked about that yet? The Ishbia, that soundbite, like the house isn't on fire. 26 teams would trade places with us. I just like,
I mean, are you surprised? You heard the voicemail where
I know. He's just got to come in there and do like Wolf of Wall Street pep talk to the assembled worker bees and like message to the media. Also, like to lead with, I think if one of my like, I don't know how often I've tweeted in the last 6 months, but I did one where I just said like, it's always a sign you're about to make a great point when you like impugn the media, which is what Ishbia did. So I was just like, I was just out on literally anything he was going to say after that. And then to go and say like, oh yeah, every team in the league would change. No, man, no, they wouldn't. Like I really think if you did a full poll of the other 29 teams, they'd all say like, you're fucked, man. Like that would be the response. I don't know what's he going to say. Maybe don't say anything. If that's what you're going to put out there. But that doesn't seem like an option.
Their situation does very clearly to me speak to that they don't necessarily want anyone else other than Ty Lue. So for some reason he's able to shake loose, which again, I don't know why the Clippers would allow that to happen. So it seems like they're just waiting on that, but maybe I'm wrong because you're right. If you wanted to make that move, okay, seeing Charles Lee, Jordy Fernandez go off the board, maybe not a big deal because you have this veteran team. But like, if you want a Budenholzer, if you want even a Kenny Atkinson, I would say like that's like you would want to make. I think you would want to be first in front of those, but also those coaches probably are either. I mean, we've seen Kenny Atkinson do this when he backed out of the Charlotte Hornets gig. They either have options or are comfortable enough with what like Budenholzer obviously like was just canned from Milwaukee, but he knows he's gonna have another job available. Kenny Atkinson might think that he's next in line to run the Warriors at this point. And so they might say, well, yeah, I'll go to Phoenix if I have no other option. So like maybe that's also why you don't fire Vogels. You don't want the James Jones is probably giving him the reality check of this is not necessarily a coveted job because of the immediate expectations and pressure. And there's always, I'm not pinning it on him entirely. There's just something. I went on the Blink-182 rant a couple weeks ago. There's something off vibes wise about every Kevin Durant team.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, they've changed coaches and have looked so different over the last several years, but wasn't Atkinson like in place when the Nets got Durant, and then Durant and whoever else kind of decided I think I would prefer Steve Nash, and then very quickly it's like, we do not prefer Steve Nash. Let's like, who else is out there? I think that's right, that Atkinson was there and then very quickly not, because Durant, among others, didn't want him to be the coach. I could be wrong. Someone correct me.
Maybe he's not the best manager of superstar egos because of what he did before Brooklyn and then the team he had there. Yeah. But like, I mean, we don't need to rehash that, but I forgot about the Kenny Atkinson tie there.
Well, that's just the thing. Like, if you're Phoenix and assuming the Lakers don't like pull from the same pool, like Budenholzer's probably going to be there. Name your other like veteran, like Mike D'Antoni might be there. I don't know, like just throwing out older names that like have been at a lot of stops, as opposed to like there was never a scenario where like Charles Lee was going to be the Suns coach pick. Like I just don't think with the team in the state it's in right now, you don't throw like a first timer into I don't think.
And I think that's the other question I want to ask you. What if it's JJ Redick? And so what do you make of the JJ Redick? Because I always feel uncomfortable. I don't like the idea of people skipping the line.
Yeah.
But is there something to the effect of if he can relate to these players, or if they actually think that he understands or thinks I don't know how to feel. I'm not very, I'm just going to compare it to what we do. Like I try to get not envious or jealous or just like someone's young. I mean, at this point, it's just everybody's younger than me. That's everyone who's younger and they're more successful than we are. They're coming up quicker. I think years ago, I might've just been jealous or been like, why not me? And maybe there's still a little bit of that, like in my underbelly, but I don't have that feeling anymore. I just don't like the NBA. There's only these 30 jobs available, and it's just he hasn't even been an assistant yet. And so I'm just curious as to just your thoughts. I do find it funny. I don't know if you saw the article that ESPN is panicking that they might lose their second like NBA Finals broadcaster before the NBA Finals because Doc Rivers was supposed to be on that team. Now JJ Redick's there.
The line skipping doesn't. Yeah, I feel similarly. It doesn't bother me. Like if that's the guy a team wants, then the market is just saying what it's saying, and fine. I just wonder, like, I guess like isn't Nash kind of a decent comparison where it's like smart players like him, like it seems to have it together.
He was a coach or consult. Like he coached Kevin Durant in Golden State. Like that was a thing
Sure.
that
Oh,
happened.
but like he was like a consultant
Consultant,
almost.
right?
Like he wasn't on the bench every game. It's just
Yeah,
I
that's
don't
fair.
know. I'm uneasy with it's maybe this is like a version of the line skipping thing. I'm just thinking of
What
it
happened with Jay
differently.
Kidd too, right? He just went from playing to coaching,
Yeah,
head
right.
coaching.
And like I mean, ultimately he's probably a success story because he's continued to be employed, intermittently for quite a while now. But like I just think, Redick had a long playing career. He's certainly, I'm not saying he's doing this on purpose, but like the way that he's operating in the media now, specifically with like Mind the Game, is like he's kind of broadcasting, like, hey, I know stuff. Like I could do the X's
He
and O's. I
he
got the
was on.
personality, like all this stuff. I just, if you haven't been an assistant, it's just hard for me to be convinced that like you're qualified for all that it's going to take to be a head coach. Like even guys that have been around the game and the NBA for the vast majority of their lives, like I just think there's got to be things you only can learn as an assistant coach. That being a player, being a broadcaster, being an analyst, being an executive, even like just aren't going to teach you. And so I think if you take on someone like Redick, and then in the past someone like Nash, and before that someone like Kidd wasn't a good NBA coach at the outset. Like that was it's just so for a veteran team that's trying to win now, like whether that's the Lakers or the Suns, like that's a pretty high risk swing, I think, because like JJ Redick may become an awesome NBA coach, but what if it takes 5 years? Like you don't have
That was
that runway.
that was the criticism. Even when you're talking about seasoned assistants, like the Lakers going after Darvin Ham or the
Mhm.
Bucks hiring Adrian Griffin.
But there's
And
no
without,
guarantee either way, right?
yeah.
Pretty clearly. So yeah, I don't know. Finding the right head coach is really hard. It's really easy to determine like this isn't the correct one,
Do
but
you
then
think?
replacing that guy is hard.
Do you think that JJ Redick ends up coaching the Lakers?
I say no only because I can imagine my reaction would be something along the lines of like a wow, like that's like I can't believe they did that. It's a non-zero for sure possibility. Like I don't know what the percentage is, but I'd be pretty surprised if he got hired as a head coach at all this offseason, which feels risky because there's a lot of jobs and he keeps getting linked to them. But it would be a shock to me because of the inexperience, because of like, I mean, he's going to have to sit down and think like, I got it pretty good right now. Like I got I don't know if it's a media empire, but he's making a lot of money, not living with the day-to-day stress of coaching. Although it does seem like he wants that. If you hear him talk, I think he wants the like in the locker room stuff. He wants the competition. He wants to be like in the NBA. So that overrides logic for a lot of guys, I think, that just want to be back in there. But I think he's got so much going outside of it that if it were me, it'd be pretty tough to leave what I'm doing right now.
The other thing. Oh, I want to ask you about this. Did you see Pat Riley's comments about Jimmy Butler?
Oh yeah.
And
So
so
I
he,
love
in
it.
the same presser, he goes on to say he says that they're not going to trade Jimmy Butler, and then also ethers his troll job of the Knicks and Celtics and criticizes his availability and second guesses whether they would give him an extension. The Jimmy Butler extension case is interesting because it really only adds a year functionally
Mhm.
to the deal he's on right now. So he would be signed instead of through 2025, 2026, if you're counting his player option, he'd be signed through 2026, 2027. But it takes him through his age 37 season. That's just given his availability or injury past. That's clearly a red flag. Do you see anything coming? Even I know an NBA executive has never lied to us, but do you see anything kind of like happening in my? Because the thing I keep coming back to is how do they get materially better? Like Nikola Jovic, Jaime Jaquez, there'll be internal development from them. Maybe even get more from Tyler Hero next season, but you're never going to have the bet. First of all, you didn't in the first place. Clearly, they found that with the Damian Lillard sweepstakes, and even if you thought they had the better trade package, it was at least debatable.
Mhm.
And they were never going to be in a situation where they could outbid for a sweepstakes, and now they certainly can't do that.
Mhm.
And so I don't actually know how to feel. Shocker. I don't really know what the hell is going on in Miami, which has been basically my modus operandi for the past
Yeah.
half decade. I don't, I, I just, something feels off here.
I I'll tell you what feels on and what I really love it is that Pat Riley has reached a place in life and in his NBA career, like has had incredible of an NBA like existence as almost anybody, where he can just be honest and like say what he thinks and just not care about, well, you know, stars get extensions, right? They agitate and then the teams cave and they want to, and he's just, I think in his inner monologue, he's like, well, that's stupid. Why would we do that? This guy's old. He keeps getting hurt. And he basically gets to go say that. And because it's Pat Riley, everybody's kind of like, yeah, that's about right. And I think I really enjoy it also because, like, I don't know, Jimmy Butler is someone I think who's kind of run over a lot of people in his career, like with his personality, and like Minnesota stands out as a crazy example, but like he's pretty like outspoken and direct, and you know, it doesn't get checked a lot, it doesn't seem like, but like Pat Riley's here to check you. And I'm a huge fan of that. I just enjoy the like candor and the like, it doesn't feel, a lot of executives get up there and it's gamesmanship the whole time. It's like, I'm messaging, I'm doing this, and maybe that's what Riley's doing, but to me it just felt like, let's speak frankly. Like, he's this old, he's missed this many games, like, you, that doesn't make sense like, and we don't have to do that. He's under contract, like, he's just being so direct about it. It doesn't clarify anything about the Heat's future other than like, I think it's going to be pretty no bullshit as long as Pat Riley is making decisions. So I really, that was one of my favorite things of the, like, I don't know if you call this the off season yet, but just him getting up there and
off season for them.
and yeah, just like laying it out there. And I think like maybe Butler is the type of guy that responds in a good way to that, where it's like, he's taking this as a challenge now. And maybe this is all Riley's 3 steps ahead and he's going to get the best performance out of Jimmy Butler, yeah, that he possibly could have next year. Or maybe he pisses him off in the Heat thing, they have to trade him. And is that the worst thing? You know, it's kind of a win-win for Riley. Like, if they have to trade Jimmy Butler, then that just there's your clarity of direction.
My whole thing is just, so we both know that Andy Ellisberg is doing the heavy lifting in Miami's front office these days.
Right.
But so like this primarily feels like that's Pat Riley's function, is to do what he did in the press conference. And so the Heat,
I love
feel
it.
like through back channels, one way or the other, they're either trying to just get more of a buy-in from Jimmy Butler or reset his expectations, or do they want sort of, I don't want to call it get out of jail free because like Jimmy Butler's still a really good player. Are they trying to sort of accept like, well, hey, we had to like start over or get rid of this guy? Because I don't know, like, part of me is just like, why would you say this if you view him as one of your 2 most important franchise players? And the other part of me is like, maybe that's just Pat Riley's role now, is to just do this and see what becomes of it. Whether it's, are they trying to get something more out of Jimmy Butler or reset his expectations, or give themselves cover if they have to make what would be a tough decision that maybe some people wouldn't necessarily be received well. I do think, though, because of what Riley said, and now what we've seen with James Harden, and even the stuff going on with Paul George and the Clippers, this is going to have to be a podcast we recorded Toprick at some point. These players entering their mid-30s that are still superstars or have the name power, it does feel like they might be in a little bit for a rude awakening when it comes to, well, you're not only you're not a no-brainer max anymore, we're not just going to give you an extension if it's short term. And I think that's an interesting function of the second apron, which the Heat are brushing up against. But like, they're basically, I phrased it this way in a piece that you and I just wrote, they're one Caleb Martin substantial raise away from just being in the second apron, which for a team that didn't, couldn't even get it, hasn't gotten a top 6 spot in each of the past 2 years, that's problematic.
Mm-hmm. I just had to look up how old Pat Riley is. He's 79. I hope, one, that I get to live to be 79, and 2, that when I get there, I have the self-assurance and like no F's given to just operate like he does. It's just like, that's one of the great privileges of aging, and I aspire to it, to just be like, I'm just going to be a crotchety guy and be direct with you all the time. And I don't care what you think about it. Yeah, I don't know. I like Pat Riley. I think he's fun.
Jamal Murray was fined $100,000 for throwing multiple things in the direction of an official. He also proceeded to not, when we mentioned this in our previous pod, so he was not suspended. He also left both games without speaking to reporters. And then I actually didn't see watch the clip or see the comments, but I saw what was coming out on Twitter where he basically was kind of shutting it down when asked about it, saying, do you have any basketball questions, or I'm already thinking moving forward? Like, I hold him to a higher, like, you're supposed to hold him to a higher set. Like, this is really just like punk shit. It's really like, take ownership of what you did.
I wanted to ask you, like, so when I didn't know about the towel in real time, but the second he threw the heat pack, I was like, you got to suspend him for game 3.
You said, I think your second was suspend his ass is what you said.
You gotta, like, I feel like that's like, we can't have this happening. But I think the counter argument, which I'm sort of receptive to, and what I want to ask you about is like, even if that's a regular season game, and let's say it's a definite suspension, are you persuaded at all by like, it's kind of the whole, like, you can't give that second technical to the star in a playoff game because you change the outcome of the game potentially that way. Like,
I feel like
is
that
it
would
persuasive
require
to you to
Jamal
say,
Murray playing like a star?
well, yeah, hypothetically, if Jamal Murray were not going 3 of 18 every night, like, is it persuasive to you when the argument comes up of like, you can't suspend him for game 3 because it's the playoffs and it like matters too much? Like, is that a good way to start like legislating behavior?
Honestly, it's not, because I understand it, and I don't. And I want to make it clear, we both thought he should be suspended. I don't want to watch. First of all, I didn't want to watch the first 2 games when they had Jamal Murray. I'm definitely not going to watch a game 3 without Jamal Murray. And then to say, yes, they're down 2-0, but if you go down 3-0 and you think that shifts the entire outcome of the series, you never want anything to have that type of an asterisk on it. But there needs to be a level of consistency, because what if that was Zeke Naji?
Right.
They're gonna suspend him for sure, and we're not gonna think twice about it because it's Zeke Naji. Mm-hmm. So I understand the argument, but I would hate now if, and I don't have a rooting interest in this. I root for chaos, which I guess the series has given us tons of chaos. Like, if the Wolves end up losing game 3 because Jamal Murray dropped 50, and then it's, well, you could just say the Wolves are good enough to beat the Nuggets with Jamal Murray. So to say that, well, it really sucks he wasn't suspended, denigrates their potential. I kind of understand that, but it's also, there needs to be a level of I know the NBA is basically going to be classist anyway, but like, we're just like, well, he's too important to reprimand, but like these other peasants, if they had done that, like we could suspend them. So it's just, I mean, it's even just comes back to the Jonte Porter gambling thing. If that was Nikola Jokic, the league probably covers it up, right? Like,
man, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think like, clearly, you know what else? I don't want to talk about this, but the Pacers submitting like 78 foul calls to the league as part of like a formal complaint. I don't know what the verbiage on that is.
I like that Rick Carlisle had, and we should probably talk about the coaching rants in general, but I like that Rick Carlisle had receipts, like timestamps of, he was pushed at 5:08. Like, yeah. I appreciated that.
I just wanted to tie that back to like, if we're looking for evidence of something really wrong with NBA officiating, the fact that a Canadian got mad enough to act the way that Jamal Murray did is the best evidence you can have. Just like, how do you make those guys angry? They're so polite. It doesn't make sense. I think we have some Canadian listeners, so that's just more of a like, you guys are great. But yeah, the Carlisle thing in the wake of Morey and the Sixers complaining last round, I just like, can we stop this?
I have actually a counter argument to that.
Ooh,
but I guess let me hear yours. But I feel like I agree with
my argument is stop complaining. Like, knock it off. That's it.
I agree, but like the players weren't the one. Like when they asked Tyrese Halliburton about it, he wasn't focused on it. And I think the role of the head coach is, if he kind of understood, okay, this game is cooked, which he did. He got ejected for clapping in the face of the official.
Inevitable ejection after his rant about the call that he was wrong about, the double dribble call that was called and corrected.
So I understand why he was upset.
He got lit up after that. He was wrong.
Well, no, he was wrong, but the way it was framed was, it was an accidental whistle when it clearly wasn't accidental. It was just, you blew the call.
Right. So, but then they fixed it in real time. They fixed it. So like,
but when it comes to just like, this is part of the gamesmanship, that he wasn't necessarily, I guess, did he go too far into the realm of, this is why we're down 2-0? Maybe, but like, especially when you're coming off again, I mean, we have anyway, but like, you have to kind of just either draw the attention to it, because maybe that does get you a better whistle as you head home. I take more of an issue with the fans or the players, or if he just came right out and said, this is why we're down 2-0. And I guess the whole smaller market teams deserve a chance. It was over the top. But again, as someone who is trying to stick up for his guys and maybe galvanize them, or at least draw attention to something that he actually think is wrong, I can appreciate, like, I do think you need to lean into the hyperbole of it, like Darko Rajakovic did. Like, Scotty Barnes is the face of the league. Like, how could you do this to him? So I think Rick Carlisle wasn't hyperbolic enough, is really what it was. But I understand like the role that he is playing. I take more issue with the fans or even the executives who aren't really going to have any, the Daryl Morey's, you're not going to have the real impact, and letting it leak out through, like, at least Rick Carlisle was straight up about, like, I was going to say this after game 1, but I decided to, we'll just let it ride into game 2. So I respect the candor, even if I find it inaccurate, and I would consider it useless, but maybe it's not. It does serve probably purposes. So I didn't have as big of a issue with what he did. The things he said, of course, they were just, some of them were objectively ridiculous, but that's part of what I guess you need to do in this situation.
I guess maybe I'm being naive in that, like, me being so staunchly anti-complaining through the media by a team of like any kind. I'm not acknowledging like referees are in fact human. And as is the NBA, who at least has some, or the people, running the NBA that have some level of say in how games are officiated. We saw that very clearly this year when the rules essentially changed. And so like that level of complaint might in fact influence the humans that are blowing those whistles, right? Like it's very possible that they look a little more carefully at certain types of contact. And they, if they go watch all these clips, like that Carlisle and the Pacers, and then in the past, like Morey and the Sixers are pointing out, like, maybe that does get you calls. I guess like I'm almost like wishful that one, you would quit complaining and just play, and two, that the complaining would not influence calls, because the only thing that should influence calls is like the physical acts taking place on the floor that you're like that. I wish it were that way, and maybe I'm being naive in just like acting annoyed when things happen that sort of point to it not being that way. Because I think it's fair to say that officials can be influenced, right? Like whether in a game or over the course of the series, like it definitely can happen. And maybe that's what this is about, is like, I wish that weren't true. And so then I also wish that the complaining wouldn't happen, because that points to the influenceability, I don't know, of referees.
I guess where I'm drawing the line is, if I thought Rick Carlisle actually believed that the Pacers were being like targeted, I would have an issue with it, because I'm not going to call on any fans. I love fans. They're listening to this podcast. I'm not saying anyone listening to this podcast did it. My point is, when I see fans or even media members who are running podcasts and blogs, but are like, fan adjacent, whatever you want to call it, all the respect in the world for the content they create. But I don't ever view the officials as having the power or they have the power, obviously, but they are never going to cost you an entire game, let alone an entire series. And so if you actually believe that, and so I'm looking at this through the lens of, this is just him sticking up for his team and seeing if it helps. And if he has to eat a fine for it, so be it. And so I understand it. And maybe that makes me have a higher tolerance for it when it's the stuff. And because it wasn't, because he didn't say nothing, but then this gets leaked out, like the way that the Sixers like to, or the Daryl Morey teams like to do that stuff I have no patience for. But I don't have patience for people like fans, media members, even if coaches really felt this way. You said it, like, referees are human. And because I don't actually think they're ever costing you a game or let alone a series, like I said, I just okay, there's problems with the refereeing, but like, that's just part of being human. Like, do you want the whole thing to be refereed by artificial intelligence? Or here's the other thing that really grinds my gears, Grant, is we want the game to be faster, but like, our problems are with the reviews when they're trying to get calls right. And I want the game to be paced up, and I feel like they could spend less time doing these certain reviews. But if you want every call to be picture snapshot perfect, the game is going to take a lot longer than it already does. The stuff that's happening now, it's not perfect, but it feels like sort of the best of the imperfect. And I'm not an ardent supporter or defender of referees, but this idea that the NBA is either rigged or small markets don't have a chance, when, by the way, look at what is happening in the Western Conference, where the three of the four teams that are most likely to win the title are coming from Minnesota, Denver, and Oklahoma City. Now, the size of the markets vary there. None of them are considered glamour markets. So shut the fuck up with that. Small markets don't have a chance. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think where we actually have kind of come together on, not that we're arguing, but like what you said was, if Carlisle actually believed what he was saying, then it would be more of a problem. And I think I sort of agree with that, because, and this ties to fans saying, oh, hashtag rigged or whatever. that's irrational. And what we don't want is like
NBA
irrationality.
QAnon, yeah.
And in fact, like what's actually happening when teams and coaches and whoever are complaining, it's like a very rational thing because they are playing the game that's in front of them, which is like, I think I can influence calls in the future. That's what this is about. Like, it's a very rational decision to make. I think where I struggle is like Carlisle, and we're just using him as a stand-in for this argument, is like he's playing the game how it is, which is with the knowledge that if I complain about this, I'm taking up for my players. There's value in that. They'll see me do this, like that builds camaraderie, trust, whatever, and I might influence the game. And what I wish is I want the game to be how I think it should be, which is like nobody complains because there's no effect to it. It doesn't influence calls down the line, and everyone's acting rationally that way. That's like just unrealistic, I guess, because, you know, so interestingly, like what annoys us is the irrationality of it all. And in fact, like by complaining, you're just making the correct, like strategic choice a lot of the time, which I don't like, but I think that's just how it is.
A lot of stuff going on in the Knicks Pacers series overall. The Knicks are up 2-0. I do want to start with just the injuries before we kind of get into how the series has gone. Mitchell Robinson is now done for the year with the stress reaction in, I think it's the same ankle. I think it's the left ankle that he had surgery on. And I saw a lot of people blaming Joel Embiid for this. Mitchell Robinson did tweet out that he went back and watched the play, and he basically said he couldn't even be mad because he was trying to defend guys on one foot. I immediately wondered or thought, I hope that like he didn't come back too soon and this is the reason why the injury happened. There's no way of me proving that. Just like, and this is the big one for me. So Jalen Brunson injures his right foot, misses the entire, like he missed like 15 plus straight minutes it was. And the Knicks were just like, you could tell. Yeah. They were, you know, I saw a lot of people criticize them like they need to slow things down. This is Indiana's game. And it's, if you slow things down, you have no one to create in the slowed down situations. And so, no, I actually thought that was a bonkers take, quite frankly. He comes back. It looked like he got better as the game wore on. But like when he came back, he tried to cut initially on that ankle. And he stopped. Like it was, is this going to be something to monitor? Even Josh Hart kind of mentioned it. Oh, he's going to play whatever. Maybe it'll be a little bit swollen, but it's just a flesh wound, basically, is how he went. The OG Anunoby hamstring injury look, I think those are, you can make a case for Josh Hart being the Knicks' second most important player right now. And I guess he is just based off the minutes that he's playing. But like OG Anunoby is the nerve center of their defense. And the way he came up after what the Knicks are calling hamstring soreness, I guess to be fair, they need to diagnose it. They haven't yet as we've recorded this, but like there's just never going to be the same level of transparency. I mean, a lot of teams are hush-hush with injuries, so it's not even a pot shot at the Knicks. My immediate thought was, and they were warring thoughts on this, the hamstring injury specifically, I'm not a doctor, I'm not even Jeff Stotts, but it was, okay, this is the product of playing too much. This is the product of overuse. And I
was going to ask you specifically about this angle, so please go ahead.
Knicks fans, which I have no problem saying this because if you listen to this podcast and you don't know that like I grew up a Knicks fan, I don't really know, but Knicks fans are sensitive to the Tom Thibodeau playing time thing all of a sudden because now Tom Thibodeau is God. He needed to be fired, and I was one of them that advocated for 7 games of last season, but now he's God. He didn't receive enough Coach of the Year love this season, and to be honest, he probably didn't. But besides the point. So I actually do believe, okay, look at OG Anunoby's game logs. 47, I'm rounding up, 47 minutes in game 4 against the Sixers. Over 50 minutes in game 5 against the Sixers. That went in overtime. 45 minutes in game 6 against the Sixers. Over 42 minutes in game 1 against the Pacers. He was at 28 minutes in the middle of the third quarter against the Pacers in game 2. However, this is what I want to be clear on. It probably is the byproduct of overuse. And even if it's not, if you're going to be on the court more, there's a greater chance that something is going to happen and you're going to get injured just because there's more of an opportunity. Like sure. Josh Hart, it could be in the best shape of anyone in the NBA. He could be, I laughed at his quote where they asked how life's going to change if OG Anunoby can't play. And he was basically like, motherfucker, I'm playing 48 minutes already. Nothing's going to change. Nothing will change. So, but I'm about to defend Tom Thibodeau. So let's see if anyone tuned out or unsubscribed if they were a Knicks fan before this. What else is he supposed to do? We saw what happens if you're putting Alec Burks in the game. He comes in, chucks up a mid-range jumper on basically the first possession he's there. And so you could get into, well, like, could you give Deuce McBride a longer runway? Deuce McBride isn't going to solve your front court issues where no Julius Randle. And I'm not saying that any of these guys replicate the defense Anunoby brings, so he might be here regardless. But this exact circumstance, where are you supposed to turn? Mitchell Robinson, done for the year. Julius Randle, done for the year. Bojan Bogdanovic, someone who can at least, populate minutes in the front court, done for the year. So my guess would be that OG Anunoby specifically, and you could just tie this to Jalen Brunson, where they're on the court more, so it's just more likely something is going to break down. Not necessarily because of the overuse, but because of the greater opportunity. Yep. In OG Anunoby's case, I feel like this might be the byproduct of overuse. I just don't. How are you supposed to use him less? I don't know where I land on this, because the alternative would be we know OG Anunoby's injury history, and he got injured making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich once. So like, we really need to put him in bubble wrap. Okay. And then what? Like Precious Achiuwa, like you need to play 30 minutes a game all of a sudden. Oh, look, you're going to have to start doing that anyway, apparently. So I don't know where I land on this. So I was actually going to ask you, I just don't know what to make of it. It's part of the mystique of this team, though, that they continue to overcome this adversity. I can't help shade. Like, it also just kind of sucks, because it's, the Knicks won't die, and that's really cool, but I want a competitive Eastern Conference Finals. And like, at this rate, Boston's got to be sitting there like wiping their hands together, drooling.
Oh, just totally. So I think this is a fascinating topic, and it's much more interesting now. I guess we need to lay down like a foundation sort of here. Would you agree that at least now, as opposed to like, say, this time last year, it is unsettled whether like load management is in fact an effective injury prevention strategy? Like, we're not sure. We're not as sure as we used to be. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes. I'm skeptical because the NBA came out and said it. Right. And it was basically breaking science aligns with our business interests. It's just
that's like, you can definitely be suspicious of that argument on like where are the incentives actually here, which you laid out, like the NBA's business interest is in getting guys to play more. So, what a coincidence. Turns out playing less is actually not definitely going to avoid injuries. And like, we need to sort of accept that premise for any of the rest of this to like have any legs. So like, if we accept that it's unsettled, we're not certain that load management or just playing guys less is going to reduce risk of injury, except for the point you laid out, which is really important, of like, well, if you play 48 minutes, your exposure to the risk of injury is greater than someone that plays 0 minutes because they're not running around. Like, that's indisputable. Beyond that, though, like, intuitively, and like, we both enjoy exercise. Like, in what scenario is it a bad thing to train as hard as you can for as long as you can, like within reason? Like, as long as you don't injure something or you don't overdo it, you will always build yourself up better if you train harder. So like, the Knicks train and play harder. And like, that's been referred to several times now. Like, they can play 48 minutes because they play 42 a lot. And guys that play 31, it's a lot harder for them to ramp up, another 50% of those minutes again, like, just because the stakes are higher. I'm really persuaded, the more I think about it now, that like, there is something to, it's just easier to play guys more if you play them more like as a habit. Like, and the ones that hold up, and the ones that don't. Like, I think I'm very intrigued by that. The other angle of this is, like, think about how teams deal with foul trouble, where if a guy picks up his fourth early in the third, you sit him, maybe for the rest of the third or whatever, because then he'll be back in the fourth. And there's a lot of debate over like, when is it smart to sit a guy? Because you're just like, you're taking him off the floor, and maybe you lose the game in those minutes. So who gives a shit if he's back in the fourth quarter and he doesn't foul out of the game? I think that same logic, as applied to how the Knicks are operating, like over a full season, is really interesting, especially. And so like, you're running your guys into the ground. They're basically doing the equivalent of playing their whole lineup, their whole rotation with 5 fouls, like the whole time. It's like, fuck it, leave them out there. If they're going to go down, they're going to go down, but like, we'll go as far as we can with them. And so to the people that are saying like, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but this is out there, like, this is the predictable result. These injuries that we're seeing now are the predictable result of overplaying these guys. Mm-hmm. And like, maybe it's just like, had you load managed these players, you would have ended up making it to the conference semifinals, and guys would have gotten hurt anyway, or maybe you would have bowed out earlier. I kind of feel like the way the Knicks use their rotation and the way Thibodeau plays guys huge minutes is just like, we're just going to max this out. And when the wheels fall off, they fall off. And maybe they would have fallen off sooner if we hadn't pushed all these guys super hard. Like, there's just no way to know. So I think in the I was thinking about the foul trouble thing, watching the game, watching game 2, where it was just like, I don't know who's to say that, like, had they been more careful or used a deeper rotation or whatever, that they would have made it any farther than they've made it. I think like just pushing and like letting like nature take its course, I guess. Like, if these guys are going to break down, they'll break down. That doesn't feel that different to me than being really careful the whole time and maybe like lowering your ceiling a little bit. I don't know. Take that wherever you want. But like, I think to me right now, the way the Knicks are playing, which is so different from everyone else in terms of playing time and rotation and stuff, is like the most interesting thing happening right now.
Well, I think those are both great points. And you can look at Kawhi Leonard and Joel Embiid, who Kawhi Leonard might be better where it's, okay, he's been load managed this year. He plays more and he's still not available. And so it doesn't really provide an answer there. And if the wheels are going to fall off anyway, well, then we might as well maximize him while the wheels haven't fallen off. And I want to be clear, in the Knicks' circumstance, they don't have a choice at this point.
That's totally true. Like, it's not like there's 3 really awesome rotation guys on the bench that they're just not using because they don't want to. It's that's the other aspect of this.
And the other thing too is just, and this could tie back into us actually talking about the series itself. They were the ones that looked like they were fine down the stretch of the fourth quarter, where the Pacers were the ones that looked like they were gassed.
Yep.
And that's something, like, maybe there is something. I mean, like you said, we're both like really into training. So maybe there is something to, like, if you're going to condition yourself to do this, you're going to be better suited to do it. And look, it's the playoffs now too. So you could also make the argument of, even if Bojan Bogdanovic was available, for instance, and I still think the Knicks should have tried playing him more to begin with, but you're trying to win in the playoffs. If you don't think he's going to do that, what's the point of cutting someone else's minutes just so it looks lower on the total? And it's not like Tom Thibodeau isn't, I mean, some of this has been foul trouble, and then Mitchell Robinson was also available for part of these playoffs, but they kind of have a feel for like, okay, Isaiah Hartenstein cannot be the guy that's playing 40 plus minutes a game. Mm-hmm. Like, the Knicks kind of understand their limitations. Yeah. And so understanding your players, where it's Josh Hart feels like he wants to play, and that's part of it. Another part of it is he has players that want to do this. They're like, Tom Thibodeau could not coach Kawhi Leonard. That's very clear. So like the fact that you have these guys that want to be on the floor, like where Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, those are guys that they're cut from the yoke of, I just don't want to come off the floor, but I will play with fewer limbs if I have to. And so you've matched that coach with the personnel, which I think helps too. And then finally, the other thing here is, it's not even just that they don't have a choice, but they've needed, because if you look at the Knicks, and maybe there's been a game or two where it's, they seem kind of gassed down the stretch. It's basically every single one of their playoff games, even if you're an impartial observer, has taken years off of your lifespan. They're just so stressful, and they're barely winning these games where they need these final stretches to pull away. This is what has got them here. Even forget about this is what has got them within 2 wins of the conference finals. So you have no other options. And then there's also, let's say you did, what are you playing or preserving yourself for? This is if you don't do you want your team? And the Knicks team would be a good example of this. Do you want your team, who's a really good team, to kind of understand, like, no, we're definitely not winning the title this year, so we're not going to try to make the Eastern Conference Finals, which we have a chance to make? No, because you don't know what could happen in the conference finals. You're probably going to get trucked, or go through 7 games of facing the Celtics and still lose. But you got there. Conference finals appearances are important. So I don't know where I land on the issue. I am receptive to what you also seem receptive to, if not bought into that. And I don't know that I've ever bought that load management was going to cure everything, because Kawhi Leonard has been, and even Joel Embiid have been perfect case studies of this. Mm-hmm. But the OG Anunoby injury was that was one where it was like, man, that feels like it's overused. And then, but I'm pulling back and I'm like, this isn't a tip. Who else did you want them to play? And it's also, even if they had another option, OG Anunoby's the best option at a time where every second, every possession matters a great deal, because for theoretical purposes, yes, you have to sign this guy to another contract. You have other seasons to play. But right now, the way they're viewing this, and you want your team to this deep into the playoffs, 2 wins away from the conference, or at this point, 3 wins away from the conference finals, you want them to operate as if there's no tomorrow. And so I don't know where I land. I guess this was almost a defense of the people that kind of, and I didn't see too much of laying it at Tibbs' feet. It's just a bummer to see how
Yeah,
banged.
right.
And I know every team is dealing with injuries, but when you look, we would have to look at the man games lost here, but playoffs specifically, the top of their rotation. That's also why, look, I'll give Jamal Murray all the leeway in the world for how he's played because the calf just isn't right. And you could tell it. That doesn't mean that you have to be a grade A ass wipe, which he has been the past couple of days. So, man, it's just so tough. And I don't want to see this. I don't want to see any series determined by injuries. And even if you view it as, well, the Celtics are fait accompli to come out of the East, it would still be nice to have a very competitive conference finals. And I don't know if we're going to, I mean, the Pacers might be semi-whole if they're able to come back from this. And that, unless you have anything else on here, that might be the place to go next, is just what have been your other takeaways from the series, leaning specifically on the Pacers? Do you think there's something they could do that they have? Like, where do you kind of land there?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, and you
More
said it
Knicks,
like,
is that like cross your fingers for more Knicks injuries? Is that where you're at?
well, I guess maybe I should start with, like, how concerned are you about, like, what appear to be my emerging conservative leanings? Because my two takes so far have been like, stop complaining and suck it up and play more. Like, I feel like I'm edging into territory that I haven't
seen. Look, until I see some like DeSantis 2024 paraphernalia or 2028 paraphernalia, I'm gonna rest easy.
You could probably get that pretty cheap. So I think it's unfortunate that, like, now I mean, look, I think the 2-0 lead, I don't want to say, maybe this is the question. Is the 2-0 lead good enough if Brunson is severely hobbled and we assume no Anunoby, and Brunson is, I don't know, like, Brunson's getting you, what did you get now, instead of 40 plus minutes and 40 plus points, Brunson is going to give you 29 over 30 something minutes. Like, if that's the Brunson the Knicks have and there's no Anunoby, it still feels like the 2-0 lead is enough for the Knicks to advance, but like, the margin for error becomes like less than zero. Like, you now need to be like lucky at least once, I think. And like, maybe game one was like a little bit of luck, because I think we talked, but my thought was like, shit, the Pacers really kind of needed that one and could have had it, didn't get it. It's just like, we now have to view this series through the prism of injuries, which was unfortunately the case for like the Milwaukee series and the Miami series and the Clippers series and the Sixers. Like, like this one, weirdly, because it's the Knicks and they have injuries coming in, like, we could just sort of like, well, who's on the floor and what are the matchups and where are the advantages? We could treat it like a normal series, unlike the other ones where it's like, no, Giannis, what are we talking about? Like, this is, what are we doing? This feels closer now to those other types of series, and that sucks. I don't know. Does the 2-0 lead hold up, I guess, is maybe the question. And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why not?
I mean, it all depends on, I think they can win without Anunoby if Jalen Brunson is close. And he had a really good close, but can he do that for 40? And he had more rest than he's used to before.
And we don't know what it is, right? We still don't know what the injury is. It seems like he wouldn't have come back if it was like, you've got a stress fracture and you're going to make it worse. Like, that seems, we're still even guessing at that, but like, that's a huge other variable. Okay. Sorry, continue.
No, I'll just share it this way. If Jalen Brunson is going to play and be on the court at the end of the game, so like he didn't need to and couldn't return, I do think the Knicks will win this series. I think the 2-0 lead is big enough. When you're looking at Indiana specifically, it feels like there's been a lot of, I mean, you could point to things each game, blown double-digit leads, missed free throws in game 2 as well. Like, that really hurt them. You get a good Tyrese Halliburton game for the most part, but you were like, he was targeted on defense, then you didn't do a good enough job targeting Jalen Brunson on defense the rest of the way, I feel like. Then there's also, why not close with TJ McConnell when Aaron Nesmith is having, you're small with them, Nembhard and Halliburton, but so what? Like, Aaron Nesmith isn't really impacting the game. There's also, you're like losing track of too many of the Knicks. I'm not even baseline cutters, but like the Knicks like flying in from above the break down the middle of the floor. You're losing track of those guys. So everything that I just mentioned kind of seems correctable, but they're sort of compounding on top of one another. And you need Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby to maybe have trademark games together. So it's not that I don't think the Pacers can win this series. It's just 2-0 is a ridiculously tough hole to come back from, especially I think when both of these games were eminently within reach. And it felt like the game one almost feels like I guess game two is the bigger blow in the sense that no OG Anunoby down the stretch. Jalen Brunson is hobbled, but game one felt like it was just more there for the Pacers through the way that it ended. And that's what's most discouraging for them. But again, the fact that they do kind of have buttons to push that they necessarily haven't yet, like maybe it is TJ McConnell closing because of what he's doing defensively for you and like really able to rough up Jalen Brunson and really rough up the Knicks' just inbounding processes. So like that's something I would look more towards. And then again, I think this is what I'll be watching for in game three is so how often are you going to go at Jalen Brunson in the half court? We know the Pacers don't like to see defenses get set anyway, but can you get his man in the action? And the Knicks typically don't like to switch, but are you going to force a bunch of, pre-switching or soft switching or like scram switches, or to throw the Knicks out of their element? And the other thing that you also need to look at is, okay, you're replacing OG Anunoby now with Precious Achiuwa. Like it might just be time to like let Pascal Siakam cook if that's how you're going to do it. And like, yeah, they've thrown other bodies at him in the series, but if it's going to be Precious Achiuwa on him, like I guess he stands like a physical chance, but you should at least be putting who's ever guarding Siakam in the action a ton. Like there needs to be, I would say, a lot of Siakam, like spam the Halliburton Siakam 2-man game, or just if it's McConnell. And I like, look, they went to some like, I can't remember the exact lineup now, but the Siakam plus just bench unit, like really helped the Pacers in that. And so is that something you could look at? I saw some people float like maybe Tyrese Halliburton should be sitting down the stretch. It's just, no. I mean, one, it's not going to happen regardless, but he was good enough on offense. There's definitely, I think what hurts them and why I still think he's not right, you can credit the Knicks to a degree, but he's not necessarily someone who puts a ton of pressure on the basket to begin with. And all his touches and possessions, like they're ending like way shallower than they normally do.
It really does feel like, if Brunson has to play at way less than 100%, the Pacers are not the team that can make a lot of hay. Like, let's go at him every time down, because Halliburton is not that type of like, I'm going to put you in the pick and I'm just going to like make you move your feet. Like it seems like he's hunting. He wants the deep three if he can get it. And like you said, when he gets into the paint and gets past the first guy, it's not the same thing as if you like had Anthony Edwards or whatever to send at Brunson or someone else that was just going to be like really taxing to defend. So that's one like way through for Brunson. And Halliburton is really, by the way, like I think Stan Van Gundy was on the broadcast of game 2 and he was all over this. Like Halliburton, game one, just like basically a no-show. And then Halliburton comes out on fire, has 20 something in, early in the game, finishes with 34 on 11 and 19. But Van Gundy was right. Like down the stretch of the game, Halliburton was not like an influential piece of the Pacers attack. Like a lot of that scoring happened early, still counts, still matters. But it wasn't the type of game where you'd say like, oh, okay, like he's back. He's maybe the best player in this series. Like, I don't know if that was going to, it's hard. Even if Brunson is hobbled, it will be hard to say that this version of Halliburton is like somehow more dangerous than he is, which might ultimately have been what Indiana needed to win this series. It just doesn't, I think I'm with you overall of like, if Brunson continues to play, like at whatever level is like, if it's not just like sad out there where he really can't move, it doesn't seem like Indiana can attack him in ways that are, sustainably going to generate huge advantages. And then after that, like, if Halliburton can, like, I think Halliburton's performance in game 3 is going to be fascinating because it can't just be an early burst and then kind of a slow fade towards the end. If the Pacers are going to have a chance, I don't know where you really turn. Van Gundy too was also all over. Like McConnell probably needs to be out there because he really makes Brunson work in ways that other guys don't. That takes quite a bit off the table offensively if you're looking for spacing, but if you're going to play Turner at the 5 and be small otherwise, maybe you get away with it.
It's almost like too. I thought I was like, do you need like more Isaiah Jackson out there when they do a good job? Both of the first halves in this series, they've done a good job of keeping the Knicks relative to the Knicks off the offensive glass.
Yeah,
and then that kind of falls by the wayside by the end of each game.
Doesn't that feel like a conditioning thing too, where the Knicks just have enough left at the end, like they're just used to it, and maybe these other Pacers?
That's not checkers, baby.
It's just, if you got gas at the end, it's because you trained to have gas at the end, and the Knicks do that, and the Pacers don't. I don't know. Like, it's hard to explain. Like, because if it's not that, then it's like, well, the Knicks just try harder at the end of games. Like, I don't know. That seems like more suspicious analysis than they're in better shape. Like, if you got to pick one, I don't know.
It ironically feels like better execution, and except for because it's not. I think you can quibble with some of the Knicks' offensive methodology down the stretch of games, but that also comes down to a lack of optionality for them. The
Yeah.
way that they can swing the ball and keep it moving, and if they're going to attack and kick, and guys are going to fly in, not just for the offensive rebounds, but for cuts. And then it just feels like maybe it is a conditioning thing, but I'm just like, I'm almost looking at it as an execution thing too. Whereas have the Knicks just been in so many close games now that so they're well conditioned and they kind of understand how they're going to play and they understand how imperfect and sloggy. Because look, there are possessions. This comes back to the Jalen Brunson thing. There are possessions where he's out, or even if he's in the floor, and like they're just not getting inside the arc, like at any point early in the shot clock. And
It's also hilarious to me when he gives up the ball because, like, whatever, he tried 3 spins and got in. Oh, I got nothing now. How immediately he runs in a little loop back to get it again. And like, here we go. We're going to take 2. It's like the Knicks and the Knicks are all on board. It's just, and maybe to your point, it's like, if you know who's going to take the shot, like pretty much every time, unless something goes wrong down the stretch of games, like the other 4 guys can just like get poised at the starting line, ready to go crash the boards. Like it simplifies things in a way that maybe that's the late, because I think they said this on the post game. Like the Pacers had more offensive rebounds than the Knicks did, but those sequences at the end of the game where they kept getting it over and over were just like because of effort, because of positioning, because of X's and O's, whatever it was. Like it's shocking that the Pacers had more offensive boards. Before I forget, the Pacers have gotten 2 good Obi Toppin games. Like he had 20 in game 2. You might, I mean, like, and they've lost both games. I feel like that was kind of the found money that you didn't like cash in, if that's to mix metaphors. But yeah, I don't know. Where else do you want to go with this series? I think we're both kind of the mind of like, if Brunson can walk, the Knicks have enough to get there.
do you expect it to go like a minimum of 6 now? I mean, we both had Knicks in 6, right?
I can't even remember if I picked this series. I would have picked the Knicks. Yeah, that sounds right. Let's say that.
I mean, we previewed it together, so I hope you made it pick.
You know, I can't remember anything. More than 7? Do you? I mean, like I don't.
No, I said like a minimum because they're up 2-0, and so there is you would think the chance of they could finish this in 5, win 2 of 3. Why not they just won 2 in a row? But with the Brunson injury, and I keep checking, and stupid me forgot both of my phones when we're recording this. So I keep checking my Apple Watch to see if we get an OG Anunoby update while we're recording this. And like we haven't. It's like we're just here assuming OG Anunoby's not going to play again. So I think it just feels like it's going to be another longer series for the Knicks where it goes a minimum of 6 to where, look, if this thing goes off the rails for the Pacers in 5 or 4, I understand that like they're not supposed to be a contender, but there are going to have to be some existential questions posed for them.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, so yeah, I still, I guess it feels like the cap is still 6. 4 seems like, I just don't know how that happens. A sweep would be incredible. I just hard for me to envision that. But I do think it kind of goes back to like, so what do we learn from Indiana and Milwaukee? And it was just like, I don't know, like Milwaukee's guys were hurt. Like, how do you possibly judge and it did make me think like, because to lose I can't even remember, of course, because I can't remember anything, like how long that series went. But like there was the Bobby Portis game where the Bucks somehow won. And it was just like, okay, the Pacers, whatever happens, we have to keep this in mind for the second round, because like a serious, belongs here potential conference finalist like cannot lose to a Bucks team with nobody available. So like that's bearing out here where it's just like the Pacers, great season, ahead of schedule, tons to be optimistic about, but like they're a little out of their depth, it feels like. Now maybe they win games 3 and 4 and the Knicks don't get Brunson to any level of competitive play, but like I don't know. Then even then, if the Pacers go to 7 or win the series somehow, it'll still be like, well, I don't know. They played a team that fell apart physically. What do you learn there? I don't know. It's hard to say.
Well, I mean, if there's something they could do to throw off where it's okay, if they're finally going to, because the Knicks, you mentioned the Pacers might have had more offensive rebounds, but the Knicks grabbed the higher percentage of their misses, as the Knicks tend to do, than the Pacers. Can you throw them into a scenario where it's like, do you have to, and they won't, but like, can you, if you can actually get to like the way that you're doing it in the first half, sometimes you're watching and it's, are they going to force the Knicks to kind of reconsider a little bit of their offensive rebounding approach because you need to get out and stop the Pacers in transition?
Yeah.
And so like stuff like that is really what to look for. I still think it's a winnable series for Indy with all the injuries, but I'm with you in terms of the lack of information that will be available. And it's also hard to reconcile with that, as I already said, where it's, well, they're not, it's not that they're not supposed to be able to compete with a team like this, especially as banged up as it is. But how do you reconcile with, well, this wasn't supposed to be the Pacers' year anyway?
Right.
And
Right.
the other thing that's just tough is, what are we doing when we just know that everyone's is like a sacrificial lamb for Boston
Yeah.
at this point, which
Yeah.
is steamrolling? And look, I think we should move on. Just wanted any quick like thoughts that you might have had on the Mavs Thunder series, Celtics Cavs series. Game 2s are going to be played by the time this is out. We're recording it beforehand. Hopefully, we'll be able to dive into these series a little bit more deeper. I'll start. And since we just mentioned the Celtics Cavs, I thought the Cavs did a good job. Like, they had the 3-point volume in game 1. They just weren't making them. And that's going to be like to keep up with Boston, you're going to need to make those shots. Is it just a matter of, okay, Garland and Mitchell need to hit and take like even more of their pull-up triples? But I did come away thinking, so like this team doesn't have Kristaps, the Celtics don't have Kristaps Porzingis. And I found myself wondering, like, should there be minutes instead of where you're seeing a Tristan Thompson or even like a Marcus Morris? Like, do we need to go to George Niang at the 5 just so Luke Cornett can't hang out around the rim? Like that's the point I'm at with like, I don't know what Cleveland's supposed to do against Boston, and maybe functionally this series would be different if they had a different structure to their front court. But the issues posing them now, especially with Jared Allen still dealing with the rib injury, they're kind of ones that other teams are going to like. Not everyone can just play 5 out whenever they want, the way the Celtics can, and the Cavs still really can't do that when you're running Mobley as the lone big. So I thought some of the shots they got were really high quality looks, but you just look at what Boston's able to do because they stretch you. Evan Mobley's not going to be around the basket. And if you are closing out on their shooters, one, you're dealing with small guards here. So that's another thing. And then two, like everybody just has the ability to get on the floor, and everything they do in the half court just puts you in rotation, and it leaves you working from a deficit. I don't know what the answer is for the Cavs. It's probably, can we have Jared Allen and Dean Wade both available? Because I think people underestimated how important, and maybe even we did. I think we mentioned it leading into the playoffs, but the Dean Wade injury loomed large because he is their bigger wing defender. Like, that is the guy. And so to not have him either, that ends up harming them as well. And so I don't want to say like declare their case hopeless. Maybe and there's always going to be shooting variance when you're taking so many threes. But even look, when you're prioritizing threes, we saw a little bit more of Sam Merrill. Like, you're giving up things defensively there, and it makes it easier for you to attack. And my final thought on this, not that I've pushed back against people believing that Derek White is and I probably have, is the second most important Celtic. Derek White just might be the second most important Celtic when you factor in his defensive. Like, this MFer is hitting step back threes, which was never, I always liked Derek White. I'm pretty sure I might have said that the Celtics gave up too much for him just because that 2028 unprotected or top 1 protected swap just felt so far away. Mm-hmm. This dude, and it's weird. I can't remember. I think it was Tim Cato. No, not the Chase Down guy said this, that he left what's supposed to be one of the best developmental organizations in the business and then turned into a fringe all-star, an actual should have been all-star at this point. And so, like, if that's your, like, consider it this way, if your top 3 offensive options are all not just legitimate offensive options, but all faring better than your top 2 offensive options on the, like, what the fuck are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I know you didn't want to get there, but I feel comfortable just calling it hopeless for Cleveland. I feel like that's the correct, just like, what scenarios do you I know that's our job, like, but what is like a realistic scenario to construct where Cleveland like wins a game, right? It's Donovan Mitchell getting 57 points, maybe. Like, and he, by and large, like, he was good in game 1. Like, I mean, I think whatever happens, his postseason performance has been, like, given the circumstances, like, really impressive. Like, he's had monster games. He's scored in just like incredible. The number of difficult shots that Donovan Mitchell has to make for Cleveland's offense to hold up is just like, I don't know what it is, but it's real high, and it might be higher than the lead scorer of like any other team that's still alive right now. You mentioned the Merrill minutes, like, you know, I think even though he's 0 for 5 and didn't hit a 3, like, that's still something you got to go to. I think any way you can create spacing to get yourself in a position where there's a high variance game, maybe you make 15, 18 threes, and Boston, has its it's a offensive bog down at some point, like that we suspect is coming. Maybe, I don't know. It's just like, I don't see the lineup that makes sense. And honestly, I was questioning, like, would it even be better if you had Allen and Mobley available? I guess generally the answer is yeah, because you just want options. But like those two together, like, I don't know what advantages that's necessarily creating against the Celtics. Like,
I think the big offensively, I don't know what advantages.
That's what I mean is, like, defensively, sure, have more length, have a rim protector than Mobley can, but like offensively, I think it makes it harder. And it's just like, it's already hard enough.
Mobley was like, what was he, 8-12 in that game or whatever he was?
So, he was 8-12.
I do think some people will use this series as an indictment of, well, look what happens when Evan Mobley is at the 5. And it's like, no, it's because you look at the rest of their personnel and to where he's spending so much of his time on defense. Like, that is the issue. It's not that he is your 5. It's the way that your team is built. Like, he's going to be out there. Like, he's just going to be away from the basket a lot of the time. So I don't know what the Cavs do. Thunder Mavs, my impressions, I hate to boil it down to this, but you're not going to win this series if Luka's knee is just that cooked. And I thought, like, it was just rough. Did you think? And when we went through the season, but if I told you at the start of the season that we were going to get to a point where it felt like, I know the Thunder, what they were able to do at offense at the end, J-Dub just sort of deciding to wake up and closing strong. Did you ever think we'd be at a point, if I would have told you in the preseason that it's going to be the Mavericks offense that's the problem in a second round playoff series? Would you have believed me?
No, it's like unthinkable. It's so bizarre. And like, but if you'd said that was the case, you'd be like, well, what's wrong with Luka? Because that's the only scenario you get to where Dallas is struggling to score, and like defensively, I mean, gave up 117. What did OKC shoot in game 1? OKC made a lot of threes, but they're gonna, I
do think we're kind of witnessing the limitations, and it would be better if Maxi Kleber was healthy, and they tried to go small without him. It didn't work. Yeah. I say small. Maxi Kleber was 7 feet tall, but they try to go 5 out basically without him. It doesn't work. And you're kind of seeing the limitations of both their big guys right now, to where, so especially when they had Josh Giddey on the floor, and the Thunder were able to just be away from Josh Giddey and in the paint. Like, when you force Daniel Gafford to make a decision, like, his shots are going to come from a little bit further away from the basket. You're going to, kind of coax him to making decisions he's not comfortable with, and you're going to get the performance that you did. There was like one time he put the ball on the floor from the top of the key. I was like, that is maybe 3 too many dribbles from Daniel Gafford. And then also Derek Lively is conditioned to almost not even look at the basket when he passes. Yeah. And the Thunder just seem to know that, the way that they're defending him. They're definitely the healthier team right now. They are the more complete team for sure. And you have to appreciate, I know he's been doing this all season, but you could theoretically, it might be harder to, maybe because you've done it all year, it's not, but you pull the lever of, like, this isn't a Josh Giddey night. And so it's going to be an Isaiah Joe night. It's going to be a Cason Wallace night. And you play those lineups, and it works because it stress tests Dallas's defense even further here. And so what it comes down to me is, it felt like, this is anecdotally, that the Mavs were able to get to much fewer of those 4-on-3 kind of advantages in the half court. And if you can't even have those, in addition to this version of Luka, and we kind of know this isn't necessarily a shot at Kyrie Irving. Pod Mavericks, Kirk Henderson had mentioned this. Like, there are just going to be nights, and certainly the beginning of the games, like, he doesn't want to be your high volume megastar. Like, he doesn't want to have to, like, run the offense or take the amount of shots to that extreme. I don't know how they win this series. And what's really, it's probably concerning. And look, there are stuff that they could foul less. Like, you could count on guys hitting more of their threes, but like, we're at a point where is the Luka Doncic injury really messing up? Like, 1 of 8 from 3 in game 1. And I'm pretty sure his 3-point percentage relative to the regular season has dropped like 20 points.
Oh yeah. I think there's a stat out there. It's like, he's the lowest 3-point percentage of anyone that's shot over X number of threes in a postseason. It's a high number because he shoots a lot still, and most guys don't shoot as many, but it's low.
38.2% in the regular season on 10.6 attempts per game. That's just ludicrous. He's at 22.7% now. So it's dropping like 15 percentage points on basically identical volume, 10.7 attempts per game. That's like, I'm not going to oversimplify this. There are other stuff. I think the bigs issue is good. Like, OKC opening up the floor for Dallas. I don't know if they're built to defend that way. It seems like, you could say you had the PJ Washington offensive foul, and there might've been another ticky-tack call there. they seem uniquely built. Like, no, they'll get PJ Washington in foul trouble when you look at the assignments that he's going to have to cover up for. I don't know what the Mavericks counter is here other than Luka looks more like Luka. And maybe that's just, we haven't seen enough of the series yet, but like you got J-Dub felt not like he disappeared because he was still doing things defensively, but you got a bad J-Dub offensive game for what, the first 40 to 43 minutes?
Right. And until he basically broke it open by himself on a mini run.
Was that the third quarter? Actually, I shouldn't even say it was the first 40. I can't.
No, it was the third quarter. I think his run was in the third, and hit a couple threes, had a couple tough finishes, had a big dunk, and it was like he had a bad game to that point. Like he looked hesitant, like missed some difficult layups that maybe he typically makes a couple of. I think like, I don't know. I guess you just start looking for, if we're taking Dallas's perspective here, it's like, well, what are you going to pick at? It's Dallas is dead in the water if Luka is going to play at this level and not be incredible. Like we can concede that as like a given.
The thing they could do, sorry to interrupt.
No.
Maybe don't play Tim Hardaway Jr. Is that like,
that's generally strong advice. And also
they need the shooting if Luka's going to go, shoot 23% from three for the life of the playoffs, I guess. But I don't know.
Like, the thing is, like, remember when we're previewing the series and it's almost like, is it good or bad if Dallas plays Giddey off the floor, right? Because like it could go either way. And Giddey had a bad game and he only played 17 minutes, but then like we always minimize depth in the playoffs. Like here comes Aaron Wiggins. Oh my God, Aaron Wiggins is going to play 20 something awesome minutes. And then same thing with like Isaiah Joe's going to do what Isaiah Joe does, hit a couple threes in 15 minutes. Big Jalen Williams was good too. Like they're just the depth of OKC, I think, just like gives them options. And normally we don't care about that so much because like only the big, the best players and the guys that you've built your core of identities around really matter. But like in this series, so in one game, by the way, but like, ahead of game two, the big guys have been value adds, I guess maybe is the better way to say it for OKC. And they have not at all for the Mavs. Like, so let's just run through it. Like, can you target Giddey? Yeah, they'll take him off the floor and then they'll play guys that are going to make shots.
Isaiah Joe will come in and hit a three on his first possession.
Right. Okay. So maybe that's out. You probably still pursue that whenever he's out there. Can we beat up Chet Holmgren underneath? It's like, well, it's not really Lively in Gafford's games. And to your point, like Lively's not really looking to score unless it's just totally spoon fed. Like there were a couple times where he had offensive boards or caught it deep and like kicked it back out. And just like, you got to look at the basket more often. So like, I don't know, I guess you still probably just see if you can be really physical with Holmgren, but that guy's tough, man. Like I think Holmgren is like, wants to be physical. So at some point, I don't think you can really beat him up too badly unless you're like Joel Embiid or Jokic or someone like that. Like Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively are not going to do that. So I don't know. You make now you're just back to like, well, can Kyrie from the jump, instead of like laying in the weeds for a while, like he's been doing for a lot of these postseason games, just come out and I don't know, get 2 fouls on SGA or something, or like, can he get you 30 points in the first half and maybe Luka doesn't feel so much pressure to like turn this postseason around and this series around. Like these things I'm grabbing are straws. I'm grasping at them. But like, it always feels worse than it is after one game, right? For the losing team. And it always seems better than it should be for the winner. So I don't know. Luka could just have like 40, 17 and 15. And then we're back to talking about this as a coin flip.
Is it going to happen? The fact that he said that if it was a regular season, he wouldn't be playing is, I know some people go, tough it out, yada, 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 but that's alarmist, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
If that's
it is. And like, it's not just him saying that. It's like, you can see it. He's not the same. I mean, it's kind of like if in a bigger sense, like one of the ways you succeed in the playoffs is like taking away a weapon of the other team, or exploiting. And like Luka's step back's not falling. So like, okay, that's a big one. Cause now maybe you just invite him to shoot a couple of those. Cause I don't know, him not having that in the arsenal is really suboptimal for the Mavs offense.
It's stat padding time, Grant. I have 2 mini exercises one's for both of us, but I guess both are for both of us. So I'm going to start with this before we get to guess a player. You are I don't even know if I can call you the NBA commissioner. You're the NBA commissioner for a day, and you
Can I
can
be a
make
czar? I'd like to be a czar.
okay. You are the czar of the
Mhm.
NBA for a day. You get to implement one rule change
Mm.
or new rule. What is it?
Oh man, I did not know you were going to ask me this. We had great success last time when I said, what if you complain to the official and you're wrong, you get a second foul. I feel really good about that one still. I would lobby to institute that again. If I could change one rule, what would it be? I don't know. Do you have one? I need a prompt. I need
So
something to
here's what
respond to.
I would do. I would make it illegal somehow to where it's if you're up by more than 2 points in the final minute, that if you commit a foul, they get a free throw on the ball back. I understand why I want to be clear. I understand
Oh,
why teams foul up 3. I just don't want to see it anymore because it can take so much of the drama out of the game if that team hits their free throws, and I want the drama. And so you can't foul when you're up 3 inside 1 minute, like intentionally foul. If there's going to the basket to play on the ball, I totally get it. But so many of these are just the obvious intentional fouls that the team would then get 1 free throw on the ball back. That's what I would do.
I want to center it around players signaling for review that to the bench on in situations like just whenever they commit a foul. It's kind of I feel like I'm just piggybacking off my take last year on complaining to officials about foul calls that are obvious fouls.
Go into that one. There's probably people who didn't hear that one. It's a year ago.
That's all it is. It's just I mean it's very simple. If a referee calls a foul on you and you protest vociferously, and it in fact is extreme, and it goes to review, and it is extremely obvious you committed a blatant foul, then you get a second foul assessed to you just because you're being a baby about it. So I feel good about that one. I don't
What do
know.
you think of mine? Do you not? You didn't.
No,
Yeah.
I like that too. I like anything that's gonna like take some of the time, like the stoppage inducing BS out of especially late game situations. Maybe you know what you could do. I feel like if there maybe needs to be like more of an upside to winning a challenge and more of a downside to getting it wrong, because you lose the timeout if you get it wrong and you can't challenge again. I don't know how you like what disincentive there needs to be because I want you to challenge like almost every time you think you're right with like, that's fine. Like if you keep getting it right, then why do you run out? I know like because you slow the game down, but like, then if you get it wrong, what I want are like, here it is. The challenges that coaches make just because like, well, it's almost use it or lose it, or like you have to, I want to get rid of those. And I only want challenges to be ones that are like, that's super obvious that the call was wrong. We got to challenge that. We have no choice. I need it to sting more if you try to like burn one just because we got to do it. Cause now we're waiting and like it's 2 minutes off the clock this is all just me trying to get through a bunch of playoff games every night. And I can't stand all these stoppages. So yeah, I don't know what could be the penalty. Maybe we need a bigger penalty for challenging and being wrong. So maybe it's like you lose 2 timeouts or you don't get to challenge the next game or something like that. I don't know. I should give this more thought. Maybe I'll have to come back to you on that one.
Okay, 2 more. Actually, I have 2 more.
Okay.
4 NBA players have now won at least 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. How many can you name? You get 3 strikes.
All right. So you got Ben Wallace, Rudy Gobert, Mutombo. Those are the guys with 4.
Thank you for yes, those are 3 of the 4.
Is that gonna be harder to cut up now that I just
Yeah, you ruined that one, but give me the it's fine. Give me the 4th one.
Oh, I don't know if I know the 4th one off the top of my head. Who else won a bunch of Defensive Player of the Years? Oh, Dwight Howard. He went 3?
Correct.
Okay.
You got it without getting a strike and while also doing it in a way where I will be not able to cut it up.
I was
All
so
right.
excited. I was like, I know this.
Okay, final one here. In what year will every NBA team that missed the playoffs in 2024 return to the postseason? The Atlanta Hawks.
The Atlanta Hawks will make the playoffs in 2027.
Wow. Brooklyn Nets.
2026.
Charlotte Hornets.
That's going to be a longer one. I'm going to get them back in 2028.
Chicago Bulls.
Well, they're gunning for it. They've got the want to. They'll make it in. How about this? They'll make it in 2025.
Wow, spicy. Detroit Pistons.
2028.
Golden State Warriors.
Could I just say I could just go 2025 and just be optimistic about it? I mean, they still have Steph and they'll still have Draymond, presumably. They're going to try. I'll say they'll make it next year, 2025.
Houston Rockets.
Also 2025.
Memphis Grizzlies.
2025.
Portland Trailblazers.
Oh, okay. 2000. I haven't done a 2029 yet. I'll say 2029 for them.
Fuck. Sacramento Kings.
2026.
Ooh.
I got too many in the West already making it. Somebody's got to go.
San Antonio Spurs.
Oh, that's a fun one. They were so far off. It can't happen next year. I'll make them 2026 too.
You're going to be sorry when they trade for Trae Young. Toronto Raptors.
They were way out this year. I'm going to give them 2026. I don't think they are all that close for next year.
Utah Jazz.
That feels like 2027.
Washington Wizards.
Ooh. I haven't gone 2030. Do we need to go? I think we need to go 2030.
I probably would have gone 2030 with the Pistons. That would have been the team that I went to 2030 with.
So bleak.
Do you have any guess of players that you want to get?
Yeah, let me pull them up here. So just to review, which of my playoff year predictions do you disagree with most?
This may shock you, but I did not log them, so I don't know. I think the Kings. I guess the Malik Monk situation. I think the Kings get back there next year. I think, as per usual, the fact that you might be removed from some of the on-court trauma, you are overestimating what the Warriors are going to do.
Probably.
You need to believe that they're actually going to try and improve this summer, and I just don't believe that.
Yeah, who knows, man. I just feel like it's so anything beyond the 2-year window is just like they might not have any of the same players, but like for any team, it's just like we're trying to forecast.
You went 2025 for Memphis, right?
Yeah, I think they'll make it next year. That's a 50-win team in there, Dan.
That's cute. That's cute.
Well, whatever you think
ready to smash their under, which is great news for Grizzlies.
Yeah, right. I just need to disagree with whatever your Memphis opinion is. All right, these are from Mike, who has repopulated the sheet here. I have several options to choose from. Ooh, okay. Ooh, did we do him already? Okay, we're gonna do this one. Clue number 1. I was drafted in 2011 outside of the lottery after spending 1 year at the University of Tennessee.
I was drafted in the lottery.
Outside the lottery.
Outside the lottery. In when?
2011. 2011.
After spending 1 year at Tennessee. I don't know anything about college.
I think that's why you always get a college question, a clue.
That ruins the one-shot kill potential. Although, what did I get? One-shot kill was a college clue. I don't remember who that was.
I don't either. But you one-shot killed it on Channing Frye because of Arizona.
Guess him again to see what happens. Yeah, 2011 outside the lottery. So I guess does this mean it's the first round?
It's unclear.
Because this could be an Austin situation where he's in the top 50 of all time scoring, and it's not 50, but he's really number one.
It's not outside the lottery in this case. Does not mean not in the draft. This person was drafted.
Okay, good. So I've only got 44 picks, 46 picks left.
Yep.
We just run back through the 2011 NBA draft. I don't think I have anything there. Who the hell was drafted? Is it? So I know it wasn't Kyrie. That's good. That's great stuff.
Is he 2011? I was going to say I can't remember the 2011 draft.
Yeah, but I don't remember the 2011 draft right now. Yeah, I don't even have a guess.
All right. Let's see. I think CJ Watson went to Tennessee. That's not who this is. It's clue 2. In my year and a half with the team that drafted me, I averaged 11 and a half minutes a game and averaged 5 points a night. So this guy didn't do anything for the team that drafted him. Would you like clue number 3?
Yeah.
In my second season, I was traded with Deron Lamb and Beno Udrih for J.J. Redick and Ish Smith.
So they were drafted by the Clippers, I guess. This is 2013. That would be J.J. Redick to the Clippers.
Well, let's see. 11-12 was this guy's rookie year. So second year is 12-13. Yeah, so traded with Deron Lamb and Beno Udrih for J.J. Redick and Ish Smith.
Still got nothing.
Okay, clue 4. I played there for 4 years, becoming an efficient scorer, averaging around 15 points a game my entire tenure. It was during this time that my appearance resembled a popular hip-hop artist, became a meme in the early days of NBA Twitter. I vaguely remember that.
Yeah, give me the next clue. Hip-hop artist. Oh, yeah, we're done here.
Number 5, in 2016, I was traded to Detroit at the deadline for Ersan Ilyasova and Brandon Jennings.
I was traded to Detroit for Ersan Ilyasova and Brandon Jennings. Fucking team is this guy on at this point? I don't even remember those two being on the same team other than Detroit and Milwaukee. Keep going. This is tough.
Clue number 6. I feel like the wheels are turning, though. My numbers in Detroit were the same over 2 years, 3 seasons, before being traded again to the Clippers.
Yeah, still nothing.
Clue 7. Here we go. I played a season and a half with the Clippers before getting traded to Philly, along with my best friend and Mike Scott for Landry Shamet, Mike Muscala, Wilson Chandler, and picks.
Is this Boban?
It is not Boban.
Tobias Harris?
It is Tobias Harris.
Oh, wow.
I tried not to make a face when you said Boban.
Wow.
I thought you'd get it on the going to Detroit for Ilyasova and Jennings because you would know.
I didn't know what team this was coming from at that point, though, is where it got weird.
Yeah.
Is that the Magic?
No, so I think it's Milwaukee because Jennings. Wait.
Oh, he was traded to. You know what? I got the order of operations there. I thought he was going from Milwaukee. That was the player. So,
hey, you got there. Clue number 8 would have been: I've played with the Sixers ever since, much to the chagrin of Jimmy Butler.
Yeah, I think I would have gotten it.
Yeah, I think.
Are you ready to get into the mind of a psychopath?
Oh, twice in a week? All right, let's go.
Clue number 1, I was a top 5 pick in the 2011 draft, playing my high school ball in Southern California.
We've just established we cannot remember who was drafted in 2011. Top 5 in 2011.
Top 5 in 2011 is that narrow the field though quite a bit.
Yeah, it does. I just can't remember anybody from that draft. I got to try to one-shot kill it though. 2011, played high school ball in Southern California. Top 5 pick. Man. I guess wish I could remember anybody from 2011. I can't remember. You said Kyrie was the first pick in 2011. Are we sure about that? I can't remember. I'm gonna say
I feel like
Wesley Johnson.
That is not the answer. Nice guess though. I like it. Clue 2. In my 5th season, I finished 10th in PER while starting 1 out of 82 games.
5th season, 10th in PER. So this feels like it's a big guy. PER loves the big guys that rebound. And he's not a starter. We've jumped from draft to 5th season.
Correct.
So 2016, Southern California. I don't know.
Clue 3, early in my 10th season, the 4th of which I finished top 20 in rebounds per game, I was part of a 3-team trade that involved the Celtics trading Desmond Bane to the Grizzlies only a handful of months after drafting him. Bane never played a minute for the Celtics. Oh, you're going to get it on the next clue. Don't worry.
Okay, then give me the next one.
Clue number 4, I hold the Portland Trailblazers franchise record for rebounds in one game with 30.
30 rebounds, a 2011 draftee from whenever you set me up with, you'll get it on this one. It's like I guaranteed to not get it.
You'll get it. There's 2 more clues and you will get it on the last one. I know you will.
30. Oh, is it? No. 30 rebounds for the Blazers. You didn't get a year that he did that. It's like around Well, there can't be that many guys that get that many boards for the Blazers.
I'll give you a hint. It's not Kevin Love, who has never played for the Blazers.
No, that I know, but he does have Oregon ties, so that's a tricky one. Man, the Blazers. Plumlee was not a top 5 pick. I don't think. No way. I don't have it.
Clue number 5. A 5-star high school recruit. I verbally committed to the University of Washington before changing my mind and signing with a blue blood basketball program for which I never played a minute due to the NCAA declaring me permanently ineligible as a collegiate athlete.
Why don't I know this, Dan? Permanently ineligible.
I didn't know. To be fair, I didn't know this either. But again, college what would I know?
Yeah, University of Washington. Bill likes to throw me off with the blue blood program thing, and never played in 05. Who committed to UW and then went to and he had 30 boards. Oh, is this Enes Kanter?
Correct.
Okay.
Final clue was I have to be the only NBA player to ever, 1, be nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, and 2, hold the WWE 24/7 championship belt.
I would not have known that one. Oh, that's a good one. 2011. What a long time ago.
I forgot. I remember he was 4th, right? Was he drafted, or was he? Because was 2011? Was that the Tristan Thompson draft too?
Clearly, I don't know.
I'm not gonna. We could look it up too. I'm not going to. So
yeah, no, it's better. Although probably based on how a lot of these clue series begin, we really need to get better at remembering who was drafted where and when.
I'm not going to do that. So.
Okay, understood. Let's see. I think we've done this. Do you want to do one more?
Yeah, let's do one each. I have a bunch from Mike for you.
All right. I think we've done this player, but it's worth a second run through. All right. Clue number 1. I was a top 5 pick in the early 2010s, which has been the case for everyone we've done so far.
Enes Kanter?
what a move by me that would be.
Let me just name a random. So what did you say? Top 5 pick in the early 2010s?
Correct.
Derek Favors.
It is not Derek Favors. Good guess. Number 2, I was the Robin to my college teammates Batman in college, and we won a national title in our only college season together.
Just give me clue 3.
Clue 3, drafted for my athleticism and defense. It was widely accepted that my jump shot would come around if my form improved.
What? Is this Wesley Johnson? Is that what you're saying?
No. I feel like you might get it.
Right now?
Yeah. Top 5 pick in the early 2010s. He was Robin to his college teammates Batman. So this guy's a top 5 pick and is Robin. Gilchrist? That's correct. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
Okay. Clue 2 is not bad.
No. Clue 3 said, clue 4, as a rookie, I was named all rookie second team, averaging 9 and 6. Next season, my numbers fell to 7 and 5, shooting a woeful 11% from 3. The shooting form was not improving. Injuries caused me to miss 102 games over the next 2 seasons. Next 2 seasons, only missed 8 total games, averaged 9.2. My 3-point percentages were 11% again, and then 0. And then it just all falls apart after that. Did you know he was signed by the Knicks after the bubble? I totally forgot about that.
I definitely forgot about that.
Did you ever play for them? Okay, never played for them. Read the clue, Grant. Never played for them and was waived 3 weeks into the season. Have not played since.
Not just one of the most ugly looking jump shots I've ever seen. One of the most painful. Like, how did he not have his shoulder coming out of its socket every time he went up to do it?
Like truly unfixable form. It's not you would start all the way over with that.
Okay. Clue. All right. Let's do one more this one's from Mike.
Okay.
Clue 1. I was a top 10 pick in the NBA draft during the early 2000s.
Oh, early 2000s.
Take the stab.
Gone back a decade. Top 10 pick in the early 2000s. This is definitely Brandon Jennings.
It is definitely not Brandon Jennings. Decidedly not.
Okay.
Clue 2. My career was off to a good start in my first 2 seasons as I was an average starter who could score, albeit inefficiently. I don't really think that's going to help you.
No, it's like a chucker drafted early in the early 2000s. No, I don't. Next clue, please.
Clue 3, things took a turn for the worse when I crashed my Mercedes and broke 4 vertebrae in my neck. There were questions if I'd ever play in the league again as I sat out for the following season while fitted in a halo brace.
Oh, man. Early 2000s.
Are you
What was
this tragic life accident? Why are you manning it?
I weirdly remember something. I don't know. That's the first clue that's given me any thought of there's someone. What was the draft? What was the clue 1?
Top 10 pick in the early 2000s.
Top 10 pick, but in a halo. Crashes Mercedes. I don't know.
Clue 4, I did end up making a return to playing as I suited up in 2003, 2004 for the New York Knicks, playing in 21 games and shooting a career high 36% from deep.
The Knicks, career high. It's not. Is it J.R. Smith?
It is not J.R. Smith.
Okay.
Clue 5, I then moved on to the Nuggets. This is still not J.R. Smith, where I was partnered with my old college teammate, Kenyon Martin, still not J.R. Smith, and Melo, but that's not important. The real story is that I got to be teammates with Greg Buckner. In my 3 years in Denver, I started 68 games.
God damn it. Okay, so Kenyon Martin went to Cincinnati. I don't know if I can name another Cincinnati player.
2 more clues after this one.
Melvin Leggett.
No, but deep fucking cut.
I don't know if that's a Cincinnati player or not. Just came into my brain.
Honestly,
Steve
I'm
Logan.
going to count that as a victory that you just pulled that name out of your ass.
Steve Logan went to Cincinnati, I think. What if I'm just way off and I somehow am wrong that Kenyon Martin went to Cincinnati? So we're in Denver. I can't think. Okay, sorry. What's the next clue?
Clue 5. I retired the following season after playing 5 games for the Spurs.
Yeah. God, I can't get off of the crash my Mercedes and messed up my neck thing.
That seems, I guess the last clue is the one that you should get it on, but I don't remember it. So I don't understand why you would remember it. Even though
are we on the last clue now? What's the next?
Well, okay, does this help you? Yeah, the last clue would be the next clue, but does this help you? I can confirm that Kenyon Martin went to Cincinnati.
A little bit. So now I really got to focus on an area of basketball I don't know anything about, which is college.
I thought you were about to say, which is the pick and roll.
This player, who the fuck went to Cincinnati? Oh, this is really bothering me. All right. Well, I guess I got to go to the last clue.
Final clue, number 7. Grant has guessed me an absurd amount of times for previous Gap Guess a Player segment.
Oh, what a diabolical clue. Who do I always guess?
Mike, Grant doesn't even remember what we podcast about.
Yeah, come on.
And people think I'm kidding, but it's infectious to where we will now be in conversation talking about something we worked on together days ago, and I can't remember what it was.
Oh, who do I always guess? This is like the snake eating its tail of Guess a Player, where it's just like I don't know where anything starts. How do I remember who I always guess? Oh, especially since I can't think of another Cincinnati player. From the early 2000s. Oh, I really don't want to give up, but I have absolutely nothing. Can I phone a friend and you be the friend and give me an additional clue of anything you know about this player that might help me?
I know so little about people who went to Cincinnati. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, but it's a name you know, right? Like it's a human being who you remember playing.
That would help you. Played for the Hawks. Nickname is Slim.
Oh, DeMar Johnson.
Correct.
Okay, now I do remember the Halo thing. Damn it. And I do always guess DeMar Johnson. Good clue, Mike. Good guess a player. I'm very uncomfortable with us being confronted with like, you've said this person before.
You can't do that to Grant. That's just patently unfair.
It just puts me on tilt. All right, that's probably going to cover things, right?
Yeah, why don't you take us out of here?
All right, everybody, thank you for listening and for contributing as usual. Enjoy the upcoming playoff slate. You will hear this after 2 games involving top seeds, but enjoy the games that are after that. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, tell your friends about this podcast. Let them know we put these on YouTube. Also, make sure you're checking out all the shorts that Dan works so hard on. That because when he gets hired away and we don't do this podcast anymore because he's become a full-time video editor.
If anyone gets to this point and knows that, first of all, they can't be that good because they're capped at getting between 8 and 13,000 views. It's never really any less than 8, and it's mostly not less than 10, but we can't seem to crack that plateau past 10 or 11 consistently. So if anyone knows the secret, help us out. Shadow band HardwoodKnocks.
Right. If you're rating, reviewing, and subscribing, please add to your list of to-dos. Like, figure out the algorithm for the internet and tell us how to crack it. Anyway, that's going to do it. Enjoy the rest of the playoffs. We'll be back with you soon. Shouts Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared.